Welcome to the Story and Critique stream. This is our bi-weekly stream where I read stories from writers in the community. 250 stories is how many I've done, from fantasy, romance, crime, mystery, novellas, novels, screenplays, and everything in between. Because my goal is to help you finish that story, get you that feedback, so that way you're one step closer to getting it published, optioned, or anything else between. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Kauffman, daily writing streamer, fantasy author, and this dragon enthusiast. I believe that if you're just struggling with the story, just put a dragon on it. So we're going to get right into it. But before we do, how do you submit? So if you're wanting feedback on your story, submit now. The submission link is down in the YouTube description down below. All you got to do is answer a couple questions, fill it out, include your excerpt. You can start right at the beginning of your story. You can start in the middle. It is whatever you need help with. I treat all things as cold readings, and right now we accept all types of stories. And if you're not familiar with my critique style, how do I critique? So, like I said, all stories that I receive, I accept them as cold submissions, which means I do not read them beforehand. So when I'm going through them, I ask myself, what are the areas that these stories can be improved? So I try to break up critiques into the 5 areas of creative writing: character development, world building, dialogue, plot or narrative, or style. Now, sometimes I'll focus a little less on structure or grammar because a lot of times the stories are in earlier drafts and we want to make sure developmentally the stories work before we really start messing around with the grammar or that portion of it. So, excellent. And by the way, if you see me highlighting your story as we're going, no worries. That's just a way for me to keep track of what things and what elements I want to critique on once I get through the story reading. And most importantly, join the conversation. If there's something that you like, if there's a story, line, a sentence that really stands out to you, drop a comment. Let the author know, why did you like it? What stood out? Or if there's something that doesn't make sense, like, hey, maybe this character's confusing, or maybe this piece of dialogue just doesn't fit there, also let the author know. Because our goal is to help the authors improve their stories as much as possible. It is my belief that all feedback is good feedback as long as it's delivered in a way that is kind and is clear. So we're going to try to help the authors today and see just what we can help them improve with. So the first one we're going to be having on deck is a mystery suspense. Ooh, Read for Angels by author Engi. So Engi was one of our competitors in the Freaky Friday competition. Engi, so glad to have you back, my friend. I'm really excited to hop into this one. Let me cue up the story here. All right, and I think... All right, and I think we are ready. I always love mystery and suspense ones. This is actually a really great place to start. And we are good. All right, and without further ado, let's hop straight into it. So, I am all ready. Make sure... Oh, we don't need that. Okay. By the way, Ryan, thank you so much, my friend. Really appreciate that. Long time no see. First draft in and on my second beta reader. Thanks for being the first viewer of Made Merc. Aw, I really appreciate that. This means a lot to me, my friend. Anytime anyone donates or tips money to the channel, I basically reinvest everything I make back into the channel, into advertising, marketing for our main events, or in trying to grow our writers, or trying to grow our community. So it means a lot to me, my friend. It really does. I'm really glad we were able to help you out. Excellent. Let's get into it. So without further ado, we got Read for Angels Genre, mystery, suspense by author Engi. September 1st, 1987, 1897. My dear son Michael, it is a shame that my life must end so soon, especially in light of such a sickness. I am sorry I could not give you a proper goodbye on my deathbed side, or voice these words with my own voice, but my throat is long gone, and we must account for the possibility you won't make it home from your trip in time. In the rare chance you return in time, I suppose this letter will become quite redundant, but I am a cautious man. Your wife is a beautiful lady, and your son is a brilliant boy, much like yourself. I have no doubts that I can rest easy knowing that the family name and your family now are safe and sound. I go beyond this veil serene because I know I raised you well for the job. You always looked good in red, no matter the season, and no matter how many times your mother would tell you not to wear cloth in the rain. That fierceness, Michael, is why this letter is for your eyes only. By the end of this letter, you will have 2 gifts, one for each birthday I missed while you were overseas. But my first gift is devoid of meaning unless you know why it holds so much value to me. It's a deeply personal gift, Michael, and I am proud I was able to finish it in time for you. My grandfather was a man named Rapier. He always believed that God was good to those who followed him and heeded his prayers and commandments, the same way he believed that those who didn't would meet his righteous judgment after their time was up. For such a strict dichotomy, my grandpa was someone who you wouldn't guess as a bad person or even a religious one. He went to church on Sundays because talking with God was what made him happy, and as he aged, he would put more and more effort into being in the Lord's good graces when his life was over. I stayed at my grandpa's house very often, and I was very close to him because of it. Close enough to notice the shift from the kind, if pragmatic, businessman into a figure who became obsessed with health, death, and God. He started refusing his monthly blood transplants, no matter how available they were in Dolan stocks. He claimed that this filthy, earthly magic of blood was healing his body, but dragging his soul away from heaven. He wanted immortality in the realms above, not a sickly existence among the chimneys and factories. Shortly after the treatment for his hallucinations stopped, the killings began. The recently lit streets of Dolan became dotted by murders and the silent, but ever-present paranoia permeated the empire's crowning jewel. They called him Jack the Ripper, a nobody, a man with no face to hate and no hands to cuff, a placeholder of sorts, empty frame sitting above each tombstone and asking to be filled by a picture. Sick as he was, my grandfather lasted longer than our provisions. He asked me to pray with him that night, hold his hand and his rosary, and murmured in Latin about salvation. The local priest couldn't come through the storm, and his biggest fear was to go to hell because he didn't confess his sins. I offered to listen. Leonard, my boy, you were always someone I could count on. Your laughs in my living room, your toy trains with tracks that led them to the stairs, only to fall down. I wish my biggest sin on this earth was the envy I felt from you, with your whole life ahead of you, while mine only shrank. But it is not. You heard the news, and my breath fails me to give you the answers you'll crave. I ask that you read my journals. I clenched his hand tighter, hoping for an affair or a bribe. I am the Ripper, my grandson, and I entrust you to know what to do. Between that moment and the next week, there are no memories of what I did. I don't wish to be reminded. Guided by his words and a sick, morbid curiosity, I read his journals under the bed frame. The ornate suitcase with red leather surface and golden locks weighed heavier to me than it would to an inspector. I took it to my room, setting it upon the white sheets and clicking it open. Inside was a hat with dark red felt and a white feather sticking out. Underneath that was a long red coat and a neat set of red pants of the same shade with a contrastingly simple white shirt. Underneath it all was a cleaver and a note, folded and sealed by wax with my grandfather's signature. I do not ask for your pardons. I ask for your compliance. I leave you a legacy heavier and richer than any sum of money I owe. With this mantle, I ask that you purify this world with the blade I used to do my part. Sinners infest the Holy Land. Eve robbed us of Eden, and now the world robs us of heaven. This sickly blood magic promises health only to trap you into a flawed body. I have been enlightened by the Lord above, and he demands streets run red with impure blood. Let the name of the Ripper strike fear in the wicked's heart like an angel from above. Let the name of the Ripper, the name the sinful gave us, be worn as a title of a worthy soldier, a medal of honor in heaven. Let the name spread. Let the name be passed down. Let the Lord's light shine through your blade and guide it to strike true. Jack the Ripper. My son, I wonder how you'll react when you find this letter. I have thought of a way to do it, but I cannot stomach it. I don't know what struck me within that scribbled piece of paper. I don't know what higher power pulled me into the fantasy of being the Ripper you grew up hearing about. But I know my endless strolling wasn't to waste. The streets are quiet. The brothels close down in fear. The greedy are scared to open their windows in storms, and the heretics are never sure they're safe. My first gift to you, my son, is this. The city I grew up in, and that you grew up in, rid of sin. My second gift is the briefcase you will find underneath my bed frame, safely tucked away from the world, and now open for you. Red always suited you well. Jack the Ripper. End reading. Wow. So I think if I recall, I feel like we might have done an earlier version of this story. Possibly. It must have been well over a year ago. Um, Wow. So that was really interesting. I love that we get the different perspective. This is definitely an anti-hero's perspective of Jack the Ripper. What an interesting take. Where he's really conveying and passing on his message from to his son. I think the letter is very heartwarming. It feels like it it feels like he's passing on this family secret. It feels like he's passing on the legacy and the mantle of what Jack the Ripper stands for, and passing on the lore, and then, of course, the tools themselves. I believe that's kind of what it feels like. Now, I'm personally not super familiar with Jack the Ripper lore and history. If you're familiar with Jack the Ripper stuff, just drop a comment and let me know if there's how many references that we get towards Jack the Ripper. My guess is we would probably get a good number of references to that mythology, but I'm just not as familiar. So yeah. I do as well. Yeah, I think there was we got the first revision a long while back. This was probably somewhere in the 20s. Yeah, my guess would be somewhere in the 20s of the critique show. So yeah, I mean, I think tonality, the piece definitely nailed it. I felt like I was in the tone and the character's POV the whole time. I think with where if I was to fix this up, I think the biggest opportunities would probably be in the structure for the most part. I think I might clean up the structure a little bit. But let's get into it. Let's see what we can see. So when I look at it in general, I do really like the character development. Technically, we have three characters, right? So we have the dad, who's the current Jack the Ripper, technically. And then we have the grandfather, who he references, who's the original Jack the Ripper. And then, of course, the son, Michael, who's passing on the mantle and the legacy too. So I think, I'm sorry I cannot give such a I like that we started off as the deathbed, but my throat is long gone and must account for the possibility you won't make it home in time for your trip. I think something I would recommend adjusting here with the structure is the things that you've included by the end of the letter. Okay, I see. Because you really do the setup. You kind of do the setup for the sun. You do 2 paragraphs of setup for the sun. Yeah. So I think I would actually swap the third paragraph by the end of this letter on the two gifts. So I would actually swap this third paragraph to the second paragraph because this is a very strong motivation. This is kind of a hook to get to the end of like, oh, okay, if we wait till the end, there's two gifts in the reader that sets up a time clock. I think this is a little stronger as a time clock than the second bit. Second bit is kind of just doing some character building. This is good foreshadowing. I really like this. I think this is really good. And then the rest of this could probably just be condensed just a little bit because we're kind of just going into the family name a little bit, and it's kind of tangential since the focus isn't the letters addressed to the son, but the letter's not really about the son. So I would say it's tangential about who the son is, because it's really more about that it's being passed on to him. But I love this concept. It was such a good idea to do that. And then we really get to go into the grandfather named Rapier. I was like, Rapier. I was like, I'm assuming there's like some type of accent, but great name. Once again, I don't know the Jack the Ripper lore that well, so I don't know if it was like a mantle that was passed down through generations, or if that's more just like the creative fiction side of it. But I really like this story. I think this is really cool. Anybody who likes that like historical serial killer, that type of reading and storytelling would absolutely love this. 100%. This is the type of story where I feel like if you got this published, you'd want to get this into like over in the UK, there's so many like Jack the Ripper like tours and like mythologies and like things. I feel like you want to get into bookstores over there if you were ever able to get this into a letter or published in any way, shape, or form, because this is a really strong piece. So we really start off with the grandfather, and I actually really like how you set up the grandfather's character. I think that was good. Um, And I think what's interesting is so we set off the grandpa as one type of character, rapier, and then he transitions into this very like God fearing obsessive man, which is really really interesting. Um, he started refusing his monthly blood transplants, no matter how available they were in Delon's stocks. So we really get the two paragraphs where really it's a transition from grandfather being well to grandfather kind of losing his stuff and really becoming Jack the Ripper. I almost wonder if so by the time we get to this point, this is the midpoint. Um I still almost wonder if you should hold off on the Jack the Ripper reveal. I feel like it would be stronger if you push the Ripper reveal a little closer to the climax. Um I think you could instead do some type of foreshadow without giving it away quite yet. Like do like something that Jack the Ripper is known for. I think that might be a little stronger, so that it still continues to build up that mystery and that hype. This is so interesting. So once the grandfather starts getting sick, that's when he starts becoming Jack the Ripper, the first Jack the Ripper, which is fascinating. Um, and even though he's sick, even though the grandfather's sick, like that's when he becomes Jack the Ripper. Um, the little bit of dialogue here, I was kind of mixed with this dialogue here. Okay, so I think this dialogue you have to make it a little clearer, and I think I was confused by who was talking. So I'm pretty sure this is the grandfather right before he dies. So you need to set up a speech tag or an action and make this super clear that it's the grandfather. And because you use dialogue sparingly, I would cut down on this as much as possible, or intersperse it with actions, since you're basically going from third. You've really been in third, kind of going into a more present moment, which is fine. You can make it work. We just need a little bit more clarity on action. And I think them revealing the Ripper part here is actually perfect. I am the Ripper. I think this is actually a perfect moment to reveal that. And then this has to be the dad's realization that the grandfather, or that the dad's dad, is Jack the Ripper. I think this is the realization that leads to him basically then taking on that mantle. And I do think that this is when the grandfather should die. I think this should be the grandfather's. I think this should be the grandfather's final words. The grandfather passes away, and then or after the "I'm the Ripper, my son," and this basically passes on that mantle and makes it very clear that now it's the dad who has to figure this out. And then the dad takes on the mantle. And this is good. So this is really like the premise of or this is like the code of conduct of Jack the Ripper, which is good. I actually really like this. I like this letter. I think structure that might just split up the letter into like two or three paragraphs, but other than that, the letter itself is actually really good. And now we get back to the present moment with the son. And I really liked this ending. And I like that the gifts, the first one is the city, because the city is basically a result of what he and his grandfather did as Jack the Ripper. So I think that's actually really, really powerful. And then, of course, the second gift is the briefcase. And I love this. I know you did the red reference in the very beginning. I might reference red looking good on the sun a second time as well. Rule of threes. You guys know I love my rule of threes. I know you mentioned the sun with his looking good in red in this paragraph. I might reference it one more time somewhere in the middle as a side thought to really make it impactful for the reader. So, yeah. Other than that, great work, Engi. Really, really great work. Huge improvement. I know it's been a while since we read the last iteration, but definitely huge improvement. I absolutely love this, and I hope to see you get it published somewhere at some point, because this is a lot of fun. All right. So absolutely, really great work, my friend. Absolutely love that, and wonderful. So we'll be hopping into, I'm going to queue up the next story on deck is going to be ML. So we're going to be reading Still Alive, which is an LGBTQ plus fantasy, which is book 2 of the Deadcaster series by author ML Claxon. So ML, we'll be hopping into your story in just a few moments. Oh man, but feeling pretty good though. What did you guys think about that? Let me hop into the comments. Let's see. Yeah, like I get the impression there's a little bit of as you know Bob dialogue to tell the reader information they wouldn't otherwise know. Yeah, I think the dialogue is because the dialogue is used sparingly, it's a little on the head. I think if the author makes it a little shorter and intersperses it with more action, I think the reader will allow it. Yeah, and I think the sincerity in it was really powerful. Oh, Courtney, did that really just happen? Interesting time when they just used DNA to name who Jack was. Really? Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So they just figured out who the actual Jack the Ripper was through like DNA testing. Crazy how medical how technology increases. Yeah, and I mean, I think this is what is interesting. Would you use quotes in a letter? So, and I think this is the challenging part because technically the thing is framed like a letter. So, if it's like a letter, then why would you have it to a present tense dialogue scene? So that's kind of like that. I think that's kind of the challenge of it. You would have to do it as reported dialogue of I remember the last words I remember the last words he said to me, and then framing it like that. You could make it work, but right now it's a little confusing since it's supposed to be a letter format. So really good call out, Courtney. Yeah, and I think it was because I think tonality. I think I felt like I connected to the tone and the emotion of what Jack the Ripper was trying to convey. But we kind of got some insights and some details about the son, which I thought was interesting. But we didn't get as much of an emotional pull as we could have. I think if the writer wanted to make us feel more closely connected, we could include more things about the dad feeling like when he says like the sun looks good in red. I think more things like that of the father's guilt of the time that he missed with his son. I think if the author played into that a little bit more, I think they'd pull more on the emotional heartstrings of it. You thought the rule of threes applies to comedy? Yeah, I mean it's one thing in comedy. I when I think of rule of threes, I think of really using it as an emphasis. Let me just double check that I'm not looking at something else. Rule of threes in comedy. Yeah, because I just wanted to make sure. The rule of threes in comedy is a writing principle that suggests a sequence of three items or events is more humorous, satisfying, and effective than other numbers. So I think it applies towards more than just the comedy genre Zencast, because in a book, if someone's reading, right, your book, and you say something once, they might remember it depending on how much information you're giving them. Two times, they may or may not remember it. Three times adds emphasis. If you mention something three times, it's almost like a key to the reader of like, okay, the author wants us to remember this. I think rule of threes is really powerful, regardless if it's a comedy, comedic, or dramatic. So I think it works for all styles of storytelling because it's really more just drawing the reader's attention to something that you want the reader to remember. Everyone knows I'm definitely a fan of rule of threes. Wow, that's crazy, Court. That's what I've heard, and it was someone on police lists, and it ended because that person was put into a hospital. Wow, so that's why the Jack the Ripper ended. Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. Who would have thought that it only ended because of the person's health? Wow, awesome. All right, well let's do it. Let's hop into our next story, and let's see. Before we do, if you're enjoying the stream, follow and subscribe. 650 consecutive writing streams is how many we've done. If you're looking for a writing community of all styles and skill levels, this is the community for you. We do fiction contests, workshops, writing sprints, conferences, and so much more. So make sure to tap that follow or subscribe button, and you'll be alerted when we go live. All right. So let's do it. Let me queue up MLs, and we're going to get into the next one. All right, so I think we got this one set up, and let's see what we got for ML. So this is going to be book 2 of the Deadcaster series. For those of you who don't know, we actually when we were doing our Read Now book club earlier this year, book 1 of Deadcaster was one of the books that we read as a book club. So if you're wanting to know more about the series, you can always check out the Read Now book club videos that are here on the Write Now channel. But yeah, it was definitely a really fun, like supernatural, coming of age school story. Very fun. It felt like Harry Potter meets like undead supernatural world with necromancers, and it was a lot of fun. It's definitely a fun read. All right, and what's this about? So, for anyone who doesn't know, this book is about Devon the Necromancer and Lysander the Vampire are back at the Royal Academy of Warlocks and Sorcery. They must navigate new threats and challenges to their happiness. Will these fated mates be able to live their lives in peace, or will others' evil plans tear them apart forever? Currently in the revision stage, and they're just looking for general feedback. All right, so let's see what we see. Still Alive, an LGBTQ plus fantasy by author M.L. Claxon. Look who I am talking to. Devon Edwin Allen Durham. My classes at the Royal Academy of Warlocks and Sorcery were now crawling by slowly, primarily because of the students who didn't understand personal boundaries or how to maintain them. At the end of the day, I headed back to my dorm and collapsed on the black leather couch. The worn hide's coolness helped me to moderately ground myself. Now, with my journal and pen in hand, I opened my 13 Constellation diary and stared at a blank page, trying to gather my thoughts. The fragrance of the dragon's blood ink kind of gave me a supernatural connection with the underworld. Then I flipped through the rustic handmade paper pages and began reading about how Lysander and I had ended up in this predicament. 11th of Aquarius, February 26th. After returning to the Royal Academy last week, news of our adventure in Denver had already made its way back here. It's unbelievable how all the students are busy spinning tales about us. The longer they spread my story, the larger it becomes. In less than a week, they now believe I am stronger than Heracles. I never knew how to respond. I never knew how to respond when they approached me and asked how someone raised by witches could accomplish such a task. They stand there, staring at me, waiting for an answer. So I always say, I guess I was lucky. Many of the judgmental students didn't appreciate my answer, so as they walked away, they either muttered curses or made rude gestures. Lysander is trying to hold up under all this attention, but the newspapers and television newscasts are reporting on him almost every day. His parents are doing their best to shelter him, but the newscasters don't seem to care about the wishes of the vampire king of Singapore. Now, as we walk around campus, we find other students taking pictures of us. What really bothers me is that they hope to sell these photos to tabloid magazines. Lysander has been growing more upset as the days go by, complaining that since the students are royalty themselves, they should be more respectful of his privacy. Often he says they are acting like royal dicks. 12th of Aquarius, February 27th. Having a single dorm was wonderful. Now that the Academy moved the Korean Kingdom's Prince Lazarus out of my dorm, I have heard he's very upset over the eviction and feels that I should have been the one who was kicked out. I am much happier with this new arrangement because it allows Lysander and me to have a place that feels safer from all the prying eyes on campus. 13th of Aquarius, February 28th. I've been trying to maintain close contact with my father for moral support. He mentioned he hadn't heard from my mother since the night we saved both her and him from the vice president and his daughter's evil plot to assassinate them. My father expressed that he didn't think she would ever reach out to us unless it could benefit her. I know this revelation should cause me to feel some sense of loss from her absence, but now I find my feelings for my heartless mother are as dead as the branded word dead. She had the Roman Inquisition court bailiff brand over my heart. I wonder if I should start going to see a therapist. Tartarus, no. 15th of Aquarius, March 2nd. Now even the professors are interested in my abilities and are letting me know that if I need any help with my studies, all I need to do is ask. This is a little overwhelming since in the past, I'd always try to keep my head down to ensure I wouldn't let it slip that I didn't have any abilities before coming here. I'm afraid if they really knew me, they would see how over my head I feel, and someone might learn I don't have a clue what I am doing. After reading through my previous entries and gripping the pen tighter, I noticed a large ink blot on the page. It reminded me of those Rorschach tests, and all I saw on the spot was a giant blob of nothingness. I bet the psychiatrist would have a field day analyzing that thought. That was when I began recording the conversation I had with Professor Sir Strad today after my Necromancy 101 class. 16th of Aquarius, March 3rd. Oh my goodness! I couldn't believe Professor Dredd announced during our class that she is going to be assisting one of the kingdom's villages with a violent spirit problem. She told us the Royal Academy had a replacement professor coming to teach us, named Kairon Sculler, starting at our next class. But I'm not sure how I feel about this change, so close to the midterm grading period. I tried to get information about the new professor, but she told me she knew nothing about him. So I guess since there is nothing I can do, I will have to go with the flow. When I had finished my journal entry, I headed across the Royal Order of the House of Hades grounds to meet Lysander for dinner. The customary scent of damp moss and the salty sea breeze lulled me into a sense of normality as I walked through the neglected squat, dull gray cemetery crypts. Crunching of gravel echoed through the narrow openings, and the shadows felt like hands reaching for me from between the crypts. The claustrophobic sensations sent chills racing down my back. I stopped to peer into the shadows. I saw the customary students clinging to the edges of the buildings, but from the darkest part of the shadows, students like hidden ghosts appeared as flashes from cameras began to illuminate the night. Shielding my eyes, I continued walking to Lysander's dorm, all while trying to ignore the ongoing disrespectful paparazzo. When I knocked on Lysander's door, his roommate greeted me and said Lysander was in his room. I walked down the darkened hallway and knocked lightly before he told me to come in. Ever since we had returned from the gruesome job of saving my father, Lysander's father insisted he was ready to have a more active role in the kingdom's government. This meant that Lysander had to attend many royal events and have a more informed working knowledge of the Vampire Council. As I entered Lysander's dimly lit room, I found him illuminated by a lamp, sitting at his desk with a large mound of dusty documents bearing the desktop, and many pages lying like bodies scattered across the floor. "What are all these documents about?" I asked. Lysander straightened his expensive shirt collar, and he hissed through clenched jaws. "Problems with rogue vampires." That sounds bad. What are the rogues up to? I asked. "The things that will get them killed," Lysander let out a breath and said. "From what I've read, they're trying to sow division and doubt within several communities. But these pointless reports that were completed by the best intelligence agents can produce. I've seen high school essays that provide better information." I let out a chuckle and asked, "So, what does your father want you to do about these rogues?" Lysander growled, "He does not want me to do anything but read these damn reports." "So, his plan is to keep you as far away from this problem as possible?" I asked. "Yes, I wish if he didn't want me to be involved, he would just keep me in total darkness," he barked out. I knew the flicker of hunger in his stressed eye, so I kissed him and said, "I can think of a few things to take your mind off all those nasty vampire rogues." "Are you sure that you're up for that?" Smiling, Lysander asked. "Why did your heartbeat just spike?" He wrinkled his nose, feigning disgust, and said, "You smell like desperation. That a new cologne?" Tackling him onto the supple leather sofa, I began kissing and biting at his neck. He easily flipped me over as his cool body lay on top and bit into my pulsing throat. I loved it when he took charge. The scent of copper filled the small dark room as I moaned with elation. When his sharp fangs pierced my warm flesh, the coolness of his lips helped to ease the slight sting from the laceration. He drank only a little, and when he finished, he cleaned the wound tenderly. He's always in a better mood after he is fed. We continued to kiss and make out on the sofa. Goddess, I love my grumpy vampire. Once we came up for air, I said, "I know you may not be hungry, but I am starving." Lysander kissed me softly, then said, "Okay, let's get you to the cafeteria for dinner." After dinner, I went back to my dorm, alone to take a shower and get ready for bed. Now that Prince Lazarus didn't live with me, the neon green mold had been bleached from a bathroom grout, and I could safely let the hot water wash the tension down the drain. I got very comfortable in my cold carved stone sarcophagus and read in my necromancy textbook, The Sorcerer of Summoning Shades. Then my catechus began glowing with an ethereal light as it flew over from the dresser with a bone key and one of the snake's mouths. The catechus whizzed around my face, and I looked up at the bothersome flying menace. I grabbed the catechus out of the air and I snapped, "What do you want?" The lights in my bedroom dimmed, and the air shifted, and a slight breeze wafted against my damp hair. My room became saturated with the aroma of brimstone as two shades materialized next to my dresser, and they were looking down at all the items on my dresser. The temperature in my bedroom dropped, which caused a chill of goosebumps to rise over my arms. Shadows shifted around them before their bodies became solid. When I saw a demon with green and black streaked curls begin to appear, I knew them all too well, and I was very curious why they had both come to me now. Clearing my throat, I said, "Is there something I can help you two with?" Lilith and Hermes both turned to face me. Hermes said, "Oh, hello, Devin. Sorry to bother you so late, but it is so important." Lilith shook her head as her snake, Lucifer, wrapped its scaled body around her arms. "I swear, on Hades' throne, I've seen pits in Tartarus decorated nicer than this place," Lilith said with a sour look on her face. "I take it that whatever brought you both here isn't a matter of life or death?" Lilith laughed. "You're too funny, young man. Of course what brought us here is most certainly a matter that concerns death." Rolling my eyes, I said, "How could I have forgotten? Look who I am talking to." Hermes came closer and said, "We wanted to let you know that you have become quite the hero in the underworld with the many of the shades and demons." Hero? I questioned. Lilith smiled and sarcastically said, "Yes, everyone is very curious about the new hero of the underworld." Hermes then added, "Devin, please don't be surprised if some shades pop in to speak with you from time to time." "Ah, damn it to Hades," I shouted. But the shades just stared at the crazy warlock until Lilith began smiling like a serial killer clown. I closed my eyes, taking several deep breaths. Then I said, "So, are you saying that my life is about to become a jumbled mess of spirits coming and going at all hours of the day and night?" Hermes and Lilith both snickered, and then Lilith said, "I would say that the nighttime hours should be far more active than the day. At least my sleep shouldn't be disturbed." Hermes changed the subject and told me about the research my father was working on when I noticed Lilith had gone back to examining every item on my dresser. I wondered what she thought was so important with these items, but I dared not ask, for I knew she would never give me a straight answer. I'll need to check if she stole anything after they leave. Hermes then began telling me he was enjoying working with my father in his study of how Greek and Roman magic had evolved over millions of years. I was happy that father was fitting into his new life on my estate in the Denver Kingdom. Hermes said that since it was growing late, they would head back to purgatory and let me get back to my studies. After they had popped out of existence, there remained a lingering scent of sulfur drifting in the air of my bedroom. I headed over to my dresser to do a quick scan of my belongings. Running my fingers along the dresser, I saw nothing missing, but my bedroom was still seething with the residual magic from my two visitors. "Please, goddess, don't let the spirits cause me lots of problems." End reading. Wow. So I love the world building. I love what you do so much with the world building, ML. This is such a great opening to, I want to say this is chapter 1 of book 2. I'm pretty sure this is chapter 1 of book 2. And of course, since I've read the first book, I've had the familiarity of all the references. It's interesting. So even though when we do a second book, and we know that the majority of people reading the second book probably read book 1, you still have to do setups for, you still have to do minor setups for characters and references, generally speaking. And you did a really good job with that. I feel like you set us up with our characters, even though like we follow them in the majority of book 1. I felt like you still did some good references. I loved the setup of it. I think the journal, the way you go about the journal can be cleaned up just a little bit. Structurally speaking, yeah, I might clean up the journal bit just a little bit, but overall that was fine. You were setting us up. It felt like the journal entries were designed to clean up and respond to any of the lingering questions from the end of book 1. That's really what the journals felt like. It felt like journals is like, all right, let's clear up any major questions from the end of the book 1 climax, so the readers can now focus on our book 2 plot lines, which I think did work. I was fine with the way you went about it. So I think that worked for me. I would say your character development is strongest. I feel clear about who our characters are. Of course, Devin, Edwin, Alan Durham. I love our main character. And of course, the devilishly excellent boyfriend, the vampire, Lysander. Very, very good. Absolutely love them. My favorite characters do continue to be Lilith. I love our little spirits. I think they were definitely very fun. So I feel like your strongest bits, I feel like world building was definitely your strongest. Because it's clear you have a sense of what the world is. I would say world building, character development was the strongest. The biggest opportunities I would say was structure, dialogue. Sometimes the dialogue worked really well, and then sometimes it didn't hit as well. So we'll dig into it, but let's see what we get. So because I absolutely loved yours, Emma, I think this was really cool. This makes me want to keep reading because I really enjoyed the first book. Okay, so let's get into it. All right, so we basically did a whole setup. We basically did the paragraph setup, which is really just setting up with the present moment of where we're at with Devin. And so basically what we're doing is you're basically setting up that he's just reading his journal entries. I almost ask myself, and this might be subjective, I'm almost asking myself if it's going to be more powerful for you to start the narrative with the journal entries and then transition into the present moment with Devin. But I kind of go back and forth on that because you're kind of setting up that Devin's sitting there, school year started, and he's kind of reviewing the journal entries instead of just writing them. Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth on this opening just a little bit because technically you're doing that. He's reading through all of his journal entries, and I'm just going to make it smaller. And the journal entries, the way they're formatted is easier to see in the original formatting of it. I just made with all the text bigger. It just doesn't look as good, but it looks great in the original formatting. So I want to say we do present moment, and then we do one journal entry, second journal entry, third journal entry, fourth journal entry, five journal entries. Okay, so we basically do 5 journal entries. And basically, it seems so. You basically will read 3. Okay, this is what I would do now that I think about it. Okay, so I think what you need to do is so you do 5 journal entries. You do present moment, journal entries 1 through 3, and then you take a present moment break and you go back to the present, and then you do journal entries 4 and 5. I think I would have him react after he reads the first journal entry. So that way you're grounding us to the present moment. I almost want him to be writing the journal entries in real time, but I get why, because you don't want to go back. You're wanting us grounded in where he's presently at. So I kind of went back and forth on that bit. I think this is something that I might get like alpha and beta reader feedback on this opening because the journal entries are necessary because you really need to set up from the last book, but it's the way they're structured. That's something about it that's bugging me, and I think maybe because it just needs to go back and forth between he reads a journal entry, he reads journal entry 1. How does he feel about it? Maybe he decides to cross something out. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe that's what it is. He just needs to respond to each to the first journal entry, because you do it late after the fourth journal entry, but I think you should do that. So that's my biggest note with the journal entries. I think other than that, the information in the entries is great. You're just basically tying off the loose ends. Yeah, because I mean, the end of book one, there's a really big climactic thing that happened, and I don't want to give away any spoilers. But yeah, so this is that. That'd be my thoughts on it. Yeah, so I think those are my thoughts for the journal entries. Let's see. Let's move right along. Uh, I like all your references to Lysander. It makes me like Lysander's character even more. Because Lysander, obviously his boyfriend, is such an integral part of his life. So I actually really liked them. I like that you have this crossed off. I actually thought that was good. And of course, I this is something I always love about your world building, the ways that they use like underworld terminology in their common speech. I really like that. These are really great examples of world building. I'm almost asking myself, I actually don't know if this last journal entry is necessary. So all of this, and my guess is you're probably needing this for foreshadowing for the class that's coming up and for the character. But at this moment, I don't think that's necessary at this point. I think you've set up this past, and I think after this, I would go back to the present moment and have him continue on with his journal entries. And then just find another way to incorporate this. Developmentally, I also like that he has his own room now. I remember that the other roommate he had previously was a dick. That was fun. Yep, and we're just doing a lot of world building as he's going to Lysander's dorm, which is good. And then, of course, we get our Lysander dorm scene. Um, And okay, so I mean, I think this makes sense that now Lysander's technically under all his busy work, because I know there was references at the last book and what was going to happen with them. I think what happening development with Lysander is great. Um, and then we go into, oh, by the way, this is a great description, by the way. Dusty documents burying the desktop. I found him illuminated by a lamp, sitting at his desk with a large amount of dusty documents bearing the desktop, and many pages lying like bodies scattered across the floor. Love that. Love it. What are all these documents about? Yep. And then we're getting into a partial love scene, but these pointless reports that were completed. Okay, so we have this opening, that we have this initial little like love scene, and what I'm kind of mixed on it. So it's like I think the reason I'm mixed on it is because I'm not I want it. I actually do think that this is good for their characters, and I think this is actually well placed, but I'm not sure what it's accomplishing in this moment. Um, So like obviously developmentally he's getting a stress out, that's always good, and realistically this is probably what would happen. Like couples, like this is what would happen. But I ask myself, what is this scene accomplishing? And the way you end it is great. So I love the way it's ended and I love the way it started. And it's not like a full-on lovemaking scene. And that's why it's kind of like this weird place, because it's not a full on uh spicy scene, but it's not a full-on scene. Like you don't gloss over it. It's kind of this middle ground and it feels like you don't know which way you want it to go. Right? So it feels like you should either pick a lane, either gloss over it if you don't really feel like it's that great of a focus, or if you want to do like the spicy scene, then go into it a little bit more, but it should also further develop their characters beyond it being sexy and fun. The question I ask is, how is it going to develop the characters in that moment? Even with spice scenes, regardless of what it still needs to forward the plot or the character development. So for example, something that I think would work really well. They try to get into it, and then he's trying to satiate Lysander, but Lysander like falls out of it, or he like loses interest because he's so stressed about the work with his father. You could then cut some of the lead up dialogue just a little bit, and then show through their actions that Lysander falls out of it, and he's not actually able to get into it. Or maybe Devin does get him back into the vibe, whatever. But I think you have to do some type of action that makes the love scene, that adds either some type of, it needs to add an obstacle to their relationship, or it needs to forward the plot in some way, shape, or form. So, but I do think where it is well placed. But yeah, that would be my recommendation. So, but yeah, I think the idea of it is fun though. And on the other hand, if you don't want it to like accomplish anything, like, hey, you know what? I don't need to have a full spice scene here, but I'm just wanting to show that they're having like a little, like their relationship, then you can just gloss over it, right? And you can do that in a paragraph. If that is not your intent to go into a spice scene here. So it really comes down to what your goal is for this part of the story. I want more of these bits too. I love his interiority, the way he thinks about Lysander. These moments are great. This makes me like Lysander's character even more through Devin's perspective. And then the back end of the chapter as we get into the two shades. Once again, the catechist. Let's get a little bit more of a description on what the catechist is specifically. Um, I just don't know what a caduceus. I'm pretty sure it's catechist. Then my catechist. I think I would just, the first time we mentioned the catechist, I would just give it some type of description, like what's it looking like as it's flying over. Just for clarity, even though like it's been a thing, I think it, because it's the first time it's introduced in this book again or reintroduced, I would just give it a little bit of description. And then, of course, my favorite characters are Lilith and Hermes. I love Lilith and Hermes. Lilith is probably my favorite, actually. If I was to choose favorite characters, I think I would probably go Lysander and then Lilith. Yeah, I would say Lysander and then Lilith. All right. Yeah. Had. And yeah, I mean, I think the last bit of the story, I don't think I have any comments on it. I think the last bit is works well for me. Where they're just kind of giving updates, and Devin's like, "Oh, great! Now I'm going to be bugged by." Not only is he bugged by paparazzi now during the day, now he's going to be bugged by spirits who want to know more about him at night. And I think that's actually kind of fun. I think that's fun. So I think that's a really good setup for more of what we're going to see throughout this book. I love it so much because you're kind of setting it up like something bad's coming, and they're like, oh no, it's our two friendly spirits. It's our friendly neighborhood spirits who they were fun in the last book as well. So yeah, I was good with that. This last part of the chapter I thought was done really well. And I think this is a really good setup for the next part of the book. So yeah, that's all that I got for you, ML. Once again, really, really great work, and I am definitely looking forward to reading the rest of this book. I'm really looking forward to it. So I hope this helps out just a little bit, and good luck with the continued work on book 2. And of course, anybody who wants to check out the first book, Deadcaster, is available on Amazon. So definitely worth checking out. It's a good read. All right, and excellent. Woo. All right, so we're gonna queue up next. We'll be starting the next one on deck. Is going to be what do we have? All right, next one on deck is The Blood Queen's Scribe by author H.K. Schneider. So we'll be starting this Gothic dark fantasy excerpt in just a few minutes. But let's see, what did you guys think? What did you think of that story? I feel like we were able to get some like really, really good supernatural like storytelling vibes there. I was actually really into that. And I saw a couple of you guys hopping in between. Yeah, I could see ML even with the beginning of it. You're trying not to have the story start off as an info dump. And I think the journal entry works. I think you just have to frame it with more present moment actions. So it feels less as less info dumpish as possible. Yeah, you're talking about the catechus. Normally with the twin snakes. Yeah, and I mean, like, maybe most people do know what it is, and I just don't have that pictured. But I think regardless, I think he can still give us a visualization, regardless of, all right, flying staff with little snakes twirling around it. Awesome. Glad it helped out, Emma. Always great to help you out, my friend. Yeah, and I mean that was as well. I was confused about the abacus, but I assume it's like a spell book. Um, which I'm pretty sure you're probably referring to the catechus, I believe. Um, but yeah, and I think regardless of just a little description will help make it stand out for the reader. Um, but yeah, once again, like now I want to go to Supernatural Vampire Academy. That sounds great. That was definitely a lot of fun. So I'm definitely like now in that like supernatural vibe for sure. Ah, all right, my voice is oh, I can feel it. My voice is like feeling scratchy already. I'm just got over being sick. All right, but we're gonna keep pushing through here and see how we do. Let's see, and what do we got? All right. So for those of you who don't know, if you guys want to like stay up to date with what's going on with the Right Now community, like we do a lot with the Right Now community, from like streams to writing sprints to workshops, festivals, all the things. If you want more like articles and tips to become a better writer, I highly recommend signing up for the Art of Writing. This is our weekly newsletter where you'll get articles to help you be a better writer, help you finish that book, motivation pieces to help you along the process, and then you'll also get the weekly live stream update for the Right Now community. So you'll also get to see the Right Now schedule. So that way you can choose which streams you want to show up to, and you'll know what things are happening. So I highly recommend you should come join us, sign up for the Art of Writing newsletter. And I'll drop that down in the chat. It's linked down in the YouTube description, but another good way to stay up to date with what's going on in the community. All right, and excellent. All right, so very, very good. Art of writing, excellent. Let me cue up the next story. Looks like we got H.K. Schneider. All right, I'm just looking at some of the submissions over here. Okay, so we'll be hopping into the next one, the Blood Queen's Scribe, which also looks like another really cool story. So let's do it. All right. All right, so we're hopping into some Gothic dark fantasy over here. All right, and here we go. All right, my voice. We're gonna try. We're gonna push. My throat feels very scratchy since I was super sick last week. So I'm like, I'm pushing through the scratchiness. Okay. So let's see. We got. Let's see. All right, I'm ready. So let's do it. So let's see how we can help out our next author. Let's see. I have it all set up here. So we're doing the Blood Queen's Scribe. The Blood Queen's Scribe, a Gothic dark fantasy by author H.K. Schneider. This is a flash fiction. So this is a flash fiction piece. This is a first draft, and they're looking for any type of feedback. It's about a human boy named Julian, recruited by the vampire queen to write her history, but he finds out things in this world aren't as they seem, and some things might have been erased from history on purpose. Chapter 1, Blood and Bone, Ink and Fire. The summons came at a dusk, sealed in black wax, and carried by a pale boy with silver eyes. Julian Gray had never been called to the Crimson Palace before. Few humans had, and fewer returned with their minds intact. The letter trembled in his hands as he read it by candlelight, the words inked in a script so elegant it felt like a seduction. You are requested by Our Majesty, Queen Seraphine, to begin the work of memory. No reason, no refusal. Outside, the gas lamps of London's Whitechapel hissed to life, casting long, bleeding shadows through the fog, just as they had every night since the vampires took the throne. Julian dressed in silence, buttoning his worn coat with fingers that wouldn't stop trembling. The air in his attic room had turned colder since the boy's arrival, though the hearth still glowed. He tucked the letter inside his satchel, careful not to crease it, as though some part of him believed it might be a mistake, that they had summoned the wrong man, and any damage would be reason enough to drag him into the sunless cells beneath the palace. The carriage arrived just after the 7th chimed the hour, pulled by horses so black they looked carved from coal. Julian stepped inside without a word. No coachman greeted him, no emblem marked the doors, and yet the city seemed to part for him. Outside the window, London twisted past in muted horror. The gas lamps, lining Whitechapel's narrow streets, burned a steady red now. Blood fire, they called it, meant to ward off wildbloods who hadn't taken the Queen's oath. Fog rolled over the cobblestones, curling like smoke from a dying fire. Most windows were shuttered, most alleys empty. No children played in the gutters, no vendors called out into the night. Only the soft echo of bootsteps remained, armed patrols in crimson cloaks, their blades sheathed in silver, and their faces hidden behind porcelain masks. Julian pressed a hand to the carriage, well as they turned sharply onto Fleet Street. Once a thoroughfare of printers and journalists, now it was home to the Blood Scribes Guild, those who rewrote history with quills dipped in sanctioned truth. He looked away. His father had refused their patronage once. After the rooftops, the spires of the Crimson Palace pierced the sky like jagged teeth, black against the moon. Somewhere beyond them, the tower still stood, but the crown no longer rested there. The queen ruled from the dark heart of the city now, and her shadow reached every corner of it. A city of whispers, of curfews and contracts signed in blood, of memory turned into weapons. And Julian Gray, scholar and survivor, was about to walk straight into its mouth. When the gates of the Crimson Palace groaned open, he glimpsed it for the first time. A cathedral of blood and bone, all Gothic spires and twisted iron. The air shimmered strangely here, as if light itself bent to the will of its mistress. Guards flanked the grand stair, armored in crimson steel, faces hidden behind blank porcelain masks. Julian swallowed hard. 100 stories bloomed in his mind. All the whispered myths he'd grown up with, that the queen could see inside your thoughts, that her voice could charm a man to death, that she never cast a reflection, because her soul had long since fled her body. And now she wanted him to write her story. He was led through the halls where the ceilings vanished into shadow, and the walls whispered with murals that moved when he wasn't looking. His escort, a silent woman in funeral black silks, never looked back, her footsteps softer than breath. The palace felt like a tomb built for the living, velvet and bone, polished marble etched with runes that pulsed faintly red. At last, they stopped before a pair of towering doors, made of dark wood that glistened like oil. The woman turned to him, her eyes black as pitch. "Do not speak unless spoken to," she said, her voice soft but sharp enough to draw blood. "Do not look her in the eye unless she allows it. Do not lie. She'll taste it." The doors creaked open. The throne room was vast and drowned in candlelight, hundreds of white tapers flickering in suspended candelabras that floated like constellations. Crimson drapery pooled on the black marble floor, and beneath a canopy of shadow and silk, Queen Seraphine reclined on her throne as if time itself. Her hair spilled over one shoulder in waves, the color of old blood, and her eyes, when they opened, were the deepest shade of violet he'd ever seen, framed in lashes too long to be natural. "Approach," she said. The word rang through the hall like a bell, and Julian's legs moved before his mind could object. Every instinct told him to run, but something in her voice, smooth, ancient, hungry. He stopped just short of the steps leading to her throne and bowed low, as rehearsed. "You are Julian Gray," she said, not asked. "Scholar, linguist, son of Alden Gray. The traits, but your memory, your gift, that I find useful." Julian forced his voice not to crack. "You summoned me to write your Majesty's history." A slow smile touched her lips. "No, little scribe," she said. "I summoned you to remember it exactly as I tell it, whether it is true or not." Murk, as if plotting something so secret, even the watchful eyes of the guards weren't meant to witness. "You may stand now," she whispered, her voice like silk. Julian rose with a tremble, as if though a small quake had ambushed his very bones. "Begin with the founding of my reign, the truth, but only the truth, I give you. Anything else is betrayal," she commanded with a velvety glow in her eyes. "You will now be escorted to the palace library," she declared with an imperious flick of her wrist, the sharp snap of her fingers summoning an unseen servant as effortlessly as night beckons the stars. The heavy doors groaned open before Julian's hesitant hand could reach the ornate handle. From the shadow stepped a figure, a woman draped in midnight silk, her movements fluid as smoke. Her eyes glimmered like wet onyx in the dim light, and when she spoke, her voice was a soft caress. "I am Leora," she said, offering a slender hand, "your guide to the Queen's memories." Julian's breath caught as he took her hand, cool and strong beneath his own. She led him through the winding corridors carved from black stone and bone, where the air smelled of dust, iron, and something faintly sweet, like blood on old parchment. Around them the walls pulsed faintly, veins of crimson light tracing ancient runes that seemed to breathe beneath the surface. The flicker of torches cast dancing shadows that stretched like fingers, reaching for them as they passed. At last, they came to a towering door bound in iron, and embossed with the sigil of a blood-red rose. Leora pressed a palm against a rune at its center. The door shuddered and slowly swung open, revealing the blood archive. Inside, rows upon rows of shelves disappeared in the darkness, lined with leather-bound tomes and scrolls sealed with wax, stamped by forgotten crests. A low murmur filled the room, as if the books themselves whispered secrets to one another. Leora stepped beside Julian, her eyes scanning the chamber like a predator's. This is where her story is kept, written not in ink, but in blood and bone. You will write her legacy here. Julian swallowed, the weight of the task settling over him like a shroud. Yet, in that moment, as their hands brushed and her gaze held, his a heartbeat longer than necessary, he wondered if fate itself had woven their paths together in this labyrinth of shadows. Julian stepped cautiously into the archive, his eyes darting over the endless shelves that vanished into darkness. The air was thick, cool and heavy with the scent of old leather, rust, and something more unsettling, like dried blood. He felt the weight of 1,000 whispered secrets pressing down, as if the walls themselves were alive and watching. His fingers trembled slightly as he reached out to touch a nearby tome. The leather was cold, almost clammy, and when he pressed his palm, a faint pulse ran through his skin, like the slow heartbeat of the palace itself. Leora watched him quietly, a faint smile playing at the corner of her lips. Not many humans enter this place, she said softly. Few can bear its weight. Julian swallowed hard. How? How do I write here? What do I use? She reached into the folds of her dress and produced a slender silver pen, its surface engraved with twisting vines that seemed to shiver in the torchlight. The nib was sharp, delicate, and dipped into a small vial of deep crimson liquid, glowing faintly like embers in the dark. This pen is no ordinary tool, Leora explained, holding it out to him. It's forged from silver and enchanted to bind the written word to the Queen's bloodline. Every stroke you make here becomes part of her legacy and her law. She handed him a sheet of parchment, smooth and cool beneath his fingers, yet somehow alive with a faint, rhythmic pulse. You cannot use ordinary ink. Only this blood ink will accept your words. Only the Queen's stories will be scribed true. Stray, and the parchment will refuse you. Julian studied the pen and parchment, a cold knot forming in his stomach. If the ink binds my words to her will, what happens if I write something she does not want? Leora's gaze darkened, her voice dropping to a whisper. Then you will learn that some truths are not meant to be told, and some lies are written in blood. Julian's heart hammered in his chest, a cold sweat breaking across his brow, as he swallowed hard, his throat lingering with a mix of dread and disbelief at the weight of her words. I shall leave you now to begin. Should you require assistance, ring the bell. Leora whispered, her finger tracing the air toward the wall beside an ancient wooden desk, its edges entwined with delicate golden vines and leaves. Resting atop the desk gleamed a silver bell, silent and waiting. All right, and we're going to end the reading there. So that's the end of that beat. All right. Well, awesome. First off, I love that story. The vibe of that story was really, really cool. I am absolutely in love with the character who has to come write the history for the Vampire Queen. I feel like you absolutely nailed the tone. I feel like the tone and the world building for that story were actually really, really cool. I felt like I was pulled into this. It's like this, like dark. It's that Gothic vibe. You really pulled off that dark Gothic vibe, where like we're meeting this vampire queen who's probably like a legend of a legend. So this is a really, really great first chapter. We're starting off with Julian Gray. This is a really great opening. You request by Her Majesty Queen Seraphine to begin the work of memory. I actually think this paragraph would be stronger if you start off with this bit right here. I think this is a stronger first sentence than here. Even though like this first sentence, this does work, this is just a stronger hook. I would start off with what the summons is and then describe that it's being carried. And then you would just adjust a little bit here. So I would start off with this because this would be a great hook. Just said. Oh, okay. So one of your biggest opportunities actually. So one of your biggest opportunities, I usually don't go into grammar. I won't touch into the grammar as much, especially if we're still working on early drafts, and grammar is more of a later one. But this is, I think this is a really good learning opportunity. So M dashes, and I'll just pull this up. So for everyone knows, our non-traditional, not grammar, I'm blanking, our non-traditional, punctuation, my brain fart. So our non-traditional punctuation, M dashes, and ellipses, M dashes, ellipses, parentheses. You want to use them sparingly because the reader's not used to seeing them. If you use them too much, they lose their relevance. General punctuation, like periods, exclamation marks, they should generally disappear. You don't want the reader to think about a period, right? The punctuation should generally be invisible, which is why when you use the non-standard M dashes, or the non-standard, like M dashes and ellipses are the two most popular one, it draws the reader's attention to. If you overuse it, it loses its emphasis. You have a tendency in this piece to overuse M dashes. In a lot of those moments, you could actually replace the M dash with a semicolon, or you can make it its own sentence. When we think about what an M dash is an interrupt. An M dash is, I have one idea here, and I'm changing to a completely different idea. It can be jarring for the reader. That's another reason we don't want to overuse M dashes. M dashes can be jarring. But if they're used with intention, we want the reader to be like, okay, one idea, no, different idea here. So don't overuse M dashes. That's my biggest takeaway. Maybe I'll do a video on punctuation at some point because I see, not just you, but I see a lot of good takeaways with M dashes and ellipses a lot of time. And sometimes it's stylistically, like sometimes you do want to use an M dash and ellipsis. I would say of this section, I would cut down your M dash use by about 60%. So I won't focus on every single one, but just something for you to be aware of. All right, so back to it. Julian dressed in silence, putting his worn coat with fingers that wouldn't stop trembling. Let's see, coat with fingers, that air. Yeah, so I mean, the setup for this is all fine. Summon the wrong men. Any damage could be reason enough. Yeah, and so like this, the beginning of the setup is very straightforward and it works because you've set us up with the hook. The hook is, oh, we're going to Her Majesty. He's been summoned, and I think the hook works very well. So then, like the second page is really just like, all right, we just want to get there. And now you're kind of setting up the mystery and the vibe with some foreshadowing. The gaslit lamps lighting Whitechapel's narrow streets burned a steady red now. Bloodfire, they called it. I love this world building. Bloodfire, this is cool. We don't need these M dashes, but this Bloodfire is actually really cool. I'll give you an example of how I would fix this with the M dash fix. The gas lamps lighting Whitechapel's narrow streets burned a steady red. Now. We're already in the present, so we don't need now. This is just me being an editor real fast. The gas lamps lighting Whitechapel's narrow streets burned a steady red. I think I would go semicolon. Actually, no, I think we could go comma, blood fire. Burn a steady red. Blood fire, they called it. Meant to blood fire, they called it. The gas lamp's lighting white nabble burned a steady red. Blood fire. Actually, I think let's do this. I don't think we need blood fire. Steady red, blood fire. Meant to ward off. I mean, or we could go that. The gas lamps lighting Whitechapel's near streets burned a steady red, blood fire. Meant to ward off wild bloods who hadn't taken the queen. I think this is a little stronger. There's a couple different ways you could go about it, but this is just one recommendation. Let's see. Only the soft echoes. Good, good. You're doing a lot of setup for this queen, which I think is really powerful. Because it's building, it's making the queen's presence feel larger than life, which is exactly what you're wanting to set up. So the interesting thing is because our MC, Julian Gray, we don't really know too much about him. We know more about the characters around Julian and less about him. I think it's intentional and I think it's fine. I'm not actually opposed to it yet because right now we're more interested in the mystery of the world. But just know that even by the time we get to that part of the chapter, I don't really care much about Julian at all because you haven't given us a reason to care. I care more about the queen and the mystery, which it kind of feels like that's your intention, but just something to be aware of. This is good. You have some really great descriptions, by the way. Once again, a lot of good foreshadowing. I think this is a really good setup. I love this setup. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not look her in the eyes until she allows it. Do not lie. She'll taste it. What excellent foreshadowing. Oh my goodness. I love this so much. Like, and this is like the world building and the mystery of this. Like, I love this dark gothic fantasy is such a great subgenre. So you did such a great job with this. I almost ask myself if we can. No, actually, I think it's fine. Yeah, I think you're doing a lot of foreshadowing to leading up to the Queen meeting. And it's once again your descriptions. Queen Seraphine reclined on her throne as if time itself had bent to her comfort. what a great description. I absolutely love that. As if time itself had bent to her comfort. I think that's fun. She was younger or ageless, her face pale and sharp like something carved from ivory and frost. Her hair spilled over one shoulder in waves the color of old blood, and her eyes. So she has a frost. She has an ivory frost face, blood red hair, and purple eyes. But she's ageless. It's so interesting. Purple, red, frost, and very interesting contrasting complexion. And very long lashes. Which is great because you've done a lot of setup for who this queen is. She herself is a mystery, which I think is very fun. And I think I do like how we get the character development here, and it's not honed in too much. I actually think this was a really smart choice, personally. We get that he's a traitor, but once again, it's still like, okay, well, why should I care about him being a traitor? This is kind of more like it feels like we're learning about it. But your memory, your gift that I find useful. This is my favorite part of their conversation. No, little scribe, she said. I summon you to remember it exactly as I tell it, whether it is true or not. I love that. This is really the heart of the theme of what he's been summoned to do. And this is going to be like the moral dilemma that he's going to be facing as a character, which I love. Great work on that. She's kind of doing setup. I almost feel like that this bit, I don't actually feel like this is necessary. I feel like this bit here, she should have him sent off after this bit right here. Like, I get that, like, begin with the founding of my reign. I think this can still be accomplished with the servant in the next scene. So I think this would actually be a more powerful ending to this current beat right here. But that's just a subjective thought. And I like that. I like that her servants are like these like servants who are draped in like blacks and whites. They kind of just like come out of the shadows and come out of like the environment itself, which I think is really cool. This like entire like castle has this like midnight, like night, Gothic, dark vibe, which is so cool. And especially like the guide Leora is basically going to explain what he needs to do anyways. So I don't think we need to do that truth bit right there. And actually, I almost wonder if exactly as I tell it, I almost wonder if this might actually be a really good character moment if he tries to say or do something, but she didn't command him, and then she sends him away to go start his job. This could actually be a good character. This could be a good save the cat moment actually for him if you want to give us a moment to care about your MC. And then we're kind of getting into this this archive, the blood archive scene. And then, I mean, I think most of the blood archive scene, this is just pretty straightforward. You're kind of just setting up for what he's going to be doing. Although there's something interesting here between Julian and Leora. It makes me wonder if there's going to be further character development between Julian and Leora, which is kind of fascinating. And that's something that interests me. Yet in that moment, as her hands brushed and her gaze held his heartbeat longer than necessary, he wondered if fate itself had woven their paths together in this labyrinth of shadows. Ooh, that's good. Yeah, and then we're kind of just setting up just the mechanics of how he's going to be writing. This is good. So he's learning the consequence. If he writes something she doesn't want, we're getting an ominous foreshadow that something bad happens to him. So I think that's a good way to end this beat off on. Okay. And yeah, so that gets to the end of that. Like I said, I think the last bit of this was pretty straightforward. I didn't really have any issues with that, with Leora and Julian. I like the character development between them. But once again, from characters, when I think about which characters I love the Queen. The Blood Queen, badass. Total badass character, by the way. So Queen, kind of like Leora a little bit. I would say Queen, Leora, and then Julian. I just don't have a reason to care about Julian yet. But for all I know, this next section, you might, since Julian's now by himself, you might give us a reason to care about Julian, but just something to keep in mind. So, yeah, that's all that I got for you, my friend. Whew. All right. What a fun little reading. So once again, thank you so much for submitting that. Definitely a really fun read, and really happy we were able to help you out. we're definitely kind of into the vampire vibe again. I know, like, I want to go like read some like vampire stuff now. So we're definitely in that supernatural-esque vibe this on this stream. So yeah, that was pretty cool. What did you guys think? Let's see. What's up, Francisco? So you hopped in. Courtney, like Kauffman might need the vampire queen to come out with this help. I don't know if the vampire queen's going to would improve or diminish my health. Oh, vampire queen, I need you. I need to be bound by your your eternal song. Oh man. Well, I absolutely love that, my friends. Thank you so much for joining us. On that note, I think I'd usually go longer, but my voice is just cracking too much, so I have to call it. That last one, that last one got to me a little bit. So what we'll do is, because I know we're behind on our submissions. I don't think I have any submissions from September, but I know we're backlogged a little bit on some submissions from October. So I'll try to catch up on our October submissions on our next critique stream. But yeah, I'm unfortunately just still recovering from illness slightly. My voice can only do so much for these readings. Oh, and I still have a lot to talk about today too. Oh man. But everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolutely great writing stream. For those of you who are in our channel membership, tomorrow's our Critique Right Now group. So if you're wanting like feedback still, join our channel membership group. It's only $9.99 a month. It's a once a month group, and it's really helpful. We've been doing it for well over a year now, and people always show up and get great advice. It's going to be tomorrow at 1 Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And then as a channel member, you also get access to all the workshops that we've done for channel members as well. So definitely worth checking out. If you want to learn more about the channel membership stuff, you just hit that join button below the YouTube video. It gives you more information. And then Monday, we will do updates for the WriteNow-a-thon, our biggest event that we're ever the WriteNow-a-thon is going to be the biggest writing event we've ever tackled. So more details about that. I'll also be announcing the Freaky Friday stories that are going to be making it into the anthology. So all that announced on Monday. We'll be back with the next story and critique stream. I should be back on my normal bi-weekly cadence. We'll be back on Saturday, November 29th, which is right after Thanksgiving. So I'll be back with that. And if you're wanting to read more, let's say you enjoyed the story and critique stream, we have 52 other episodes of all great story readings, critiques, reviews, and all the things. So if you want to go check out more story and critique shows, go check out the Reading Sprints for Storytellers playlist that has some of our highlights for some of our best story and critique shows. And there's also the archive if you want to check out specific stories. You want to see like previous iterations of some. So yeah, highly recommend. If for those of you who want to get in some writing today, make sure to come join us in the Discord. Chat Soul will be doing their weekly Saturday co-working session, which is very low-key, very easy. You don't even have to be on camera. You can just come hang out with other writers and get some work in. So come join us on the Discord if you want to come join Chat Soul's Write Chat every single Saturday in the Discord. Discord invite is linked down in the YouTube description. So yeah, I appreciate all y'all. I always love story and critique stream. And hopefully I'll be able to, my throat will definitely be improved in 2 weeks, so. All right, my friends. Thank you so much. Like I said, tomorrow I'll be back. We'll be the channel members event, and then Monday will be an update stream. So make sure to come back and join us on Monday if you want to learn more about the community. And most importantly, if you enjoyed the stream, tap that like button on the way out. Help us show the algorithm that writing streams are cool. But unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. Stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers.
It's time to write
Right
now.
now. Sorry.
Right now, not right now, but right now. Read now, right now. Is that right?